Deep in the highlands of Paraguay, along the border with Brazil, there grows a small, unassuming shrub with serrated leaves. For over 1,000 years, the Guarani people have called it caahe, the sweet herb. They chewed its leaves for their remarkable sweetness, steeped them in their bitter yerba mate tea, and used them as medicine. This humble plant, known to science as Stevia Rebaudiana, would eventually become the center of one of the most intriguing regulatory battles in modern food history. The title question, "Why did Big Pharma fail to patent stevia?" contains a revealing assumption that deserves unpacking. The reality is more nuanced than a simple tale of corporate failure. Companies didn't exactly fail to patent stevia. Rather, they couldn't patent what nature had already created. So they did something else entirely. They patented the processes to extract and refine it. This distinction matters because it reveals both the limits of corporate control over natural products and the clever workarounds that eventually allowed major corporations to dominate this market anyway. The story of stevia begins not in a laboratory, but in the remote Amambe highlands where the Guarani people have lived for millennia. Wild stevia grows only in this small region, straddling Paraguay and Brazil, a plant so geographically specific that of more than 230 species in the stevia genus. Only Stevia Rebaudiana possesses the remarkable sweetness that would eventually capture global attention. The Guarani didn't originally use stevia as we think of sweetness today. According to researchers who have studied their traditional practices, they rarely sweetened their foods at all, preferring honey when they did. Instead, caahe served primarily as medicine used to regulate blood sugar, treat digestive problems, and ease discomfort during menstrual cycles. As one researcher noted, it was, in other words, a diabetes medicine before diabetes had become a modern disease. The first written mention of stevia by Europeans likely appeared around 1570, when Spanish physician Francisco Hernandez noted a wild herb in Paraguay that exhibited an uncanny sweetness when chewed. But European interest stalled for centuries, perhaps because the Spanish had already introduced sugarcane to the Americas, and sugar was proving enormously profitable. It wasn't until 1887 that stevia entered the scientific record properly. Swiss-Italian botanist Moisés Santiago Bertoni, while exploring Paraguay's eastern forests, learned of the plant from Guarani guides. He was astonished. In placing in the mouth the smallest particle of any portion of the leaf or twig, he wrote, "One is surprised at the strange and extreme sweetness contained therein. A fragment of the leaf, only a few square millimeters in size, suffices to keep the mouth sweet for an hour." Bertoni named the plant Stevia Rebaudiana, honoring Paraguayan chemist Ovidio Rebaudy, who first isolated the plant's sweet compounds. In 1905, Bertoni posed a question that now seems prophetic. Will sugar always be more advantageous than caahe? We cannot suppose this. To understand why corporations couldn't simply patent stevia, you need to understand what makes this plant sweet. The answer lies in a family of molecules called Steviol Glycosides, chemical compounds that are 200 to 350 times sweeter than sugar, yet contain 0 calories because our bodies cannot metabolize them. The stevia leaf contains multiple Steviol Glycosides, each with different properties. Stevioside is the most abundant, but it carries a bitter, licorice-like aftertaste that many people find unpleasant. Rebaudioside, a commonly called Reb A, is less abundant, but tastes cleaner and sweeter. Even rarer glycosides, Rebaudioside D, Rebaudioside M, and others have even better taste profiles, but exist in such tiny quantities that extracting them economically proved nearly impossible for decades. This molecular complexity would become crucial to the patent story. You cannot patent a molecule that exists in nature and has been used by humans for centuries. The Steviol glycosides themselves are beyond patent protection. But the methods for extracting, purifying, and combining these glycosides, those could be patented, and therein lay the corporate opportunity. While the United States would eventually become Stevia's most contested battleground, Japan offers a revealing counterpoint. In the early 1970s, Japanese researchers began investigating stevia after their government restricted the use of certain artificial sweeteners due to safety concerns. What they found impressed them enough to begin large-scale commercial cultivation. By 1988, stevia had captured approximately 41% of Japan's high-intensity sweetener market. The plant was being used in everything from soft drinks to pickles, ice cream to seafood preparations. Japanese consumers could buy stevia at any supermarket, add it to their tea, and cook with it freely. Safety studies conducted over decades revealed no significant health concerns. This fact is crucial to understanding what happened in America. Stevia wasn't an unknown, untested substance. It had been consumed safely by millions of people in one of the world's most advanced economies for decades. Japanese companies had developed extraction methods, conducted safety trials, and built an entire industry around this plant. The scientific and commercial groundwork had been laid, just not in the United States. In the United States, stevia's journey took a very different path. By the mid-1980s, several American companies had discovered the plant's potential. Tea makers like Celestial Seasonings, Lipton, and traditional medicinals were incorporating stevia into their products. Estimates suggest hundreds of tons of stevia were being imported annually. Then, in 1991, the Food and Drug Administration issued an import alert that effectively banned stevia as a food additive. The agency's stated reason: insufficient evidence of safety. In the FDA's original order, officials cited studies raising questions about stevia's impact on blood sugar levels and fertility, though these studies were later criticized as poorly designed and using unrealistic dosages. What happened next fueled decades of suspicion about the FDA's motives. The agency began aggressive enforcement actions. Warehouses were raided, products were seized and destroyed. In one particularly striking incident, FDA officials ordered the Stevia company in Texas to destroy not only their stevia products, but also cookbooks that explained how to use stevia as a sweetener. The destruction of books struck many observers as extraordinary overreach. According to multiple accounts from industry participants, at least one FDA inspector reportedly told a company president that the complaints against stevia originated from the NutraSweet company, the makers of aspartame, the dominant artificial sweetener of the era. Monsanto, which had acquired NutraSweet in 1985, denied pressuring the FDA. The agency also denied any improper influence. Was there a conspiracy? The evidence remains circumstantial. What is documented is that the artificial sweetener industry was earning approximately $750 million annually in the mid-1980s, that stevia was outselling aspartame in Japan, and that the FDA's treatment of stevia was remarkably aggressive compared to its handling of synthetic sweeteners with their own safety questions. In 1994, the legal landscape shifted when Congress passed the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. This law created a peculiar loophole. The FDA could no longer treat stevia as an unsafe food additive if it was sold as a dietary supplement rather than a food ingredient. The result was regulatory absurdity. Stevia could be legally sold in health food stores as a dietary supplement but could not be labeled or marketed as a sweetener. The same substance, in the same packet, was considered safe as a supplement but unsafe as a food additive. Consumers could buy stevia and use it to sweeten their coffee. They just couldn't be told they could use it that way. This paradox persisted for 14 years. During this time, health-conscious consumers quietly discovered stevia through word of mouth. Small companies sold stevia supplements with winking awareness that customers would use them as sweeteners, and major corporations watched, calculated, and planned. The turning point came in 2007 when Coca-Cola and Cargill, a beverage giant and an agricultural processing giant, announced a partnership to develop a stevia-based sweetener. Coca-Cola filed 24 patent applications covering the use of refined stevia extracts in products ranging from beverages to vitamins to cereal. Here is where the question: why did they fail to patent stevia requires correction? They didn't fail. They successfully patented what could be patented: specific extraction processes, purification methods, and product formulations. They couldn't patent the stevia leaf or the Steviol Glycosides themselves. No one can patent nature. But they could, and did, patent the sophisticated industrial processes needed to turn raw leaves into consumer products. In May 2008, Coca-Cola and Cargill announced Truvia, their branded stevia sweetener. That same year, PepsiCo partnered with Whole Earth Sweetener Company to launch Purevia. Both products contained Rebaudioside A, the best tasting of the common Steviol Glycosides mixed with erythritol, a sugar alcohol that provides bulk and improves texture. In December 2008, after Cargill and Coca-Cola submitted 12 safety studies authored, critics noted, primarily by researchers with ties to those companies, the FDA issued a no-objection letter granting GRAS status, generally recognized as safe, to high-purity Rebaudioside A. The same agency that had banned stevia imports, raided warehouses, and ordered the destruction of cookbooks, now found stevia acceptable, but only in the refined, patented forms produced by major corporations. Whole-leaf stevia and crude stevia extracts remained technically unapproved as food additives, even as highly processed versions received the green light. The commercial stevia products that dominate today's market bear little resemblance to the leaves the Guarani have been chewing for centuries. Take Truvia, according to Cargill's own patent documents. Producing their Rebaudioside A requires approximately 40 steps involving substances including acetone, methanol, ethanol, acetonitrile, and isopropanol. The final product contains mostly erythritol 9,599%, with less than 1% actual stevia-derived sweetener. This raises legitimate questions about marketing. Truvia was advertised as nature's calorie-free sweetener, a claim that eventually led to a class action lawsuit. Cargill settled, paying millions of dollars and agreeing to modify their marketing with an asterisk on the natural claim. None of this necessarily means these products are unsafe. The extraction processes, while industrial, remove potentially problematic compounds and isolate the sweetest, best-tasting glycosides. But the distance between Truvia and a stevia leaf is roughly the distance between high-fructose corn syrup and a cob of corn. Perhaps the most thought-provoking aspect of the stevia story involves the people who discovered it in the first place. In 2015, Guarani leaders from Paraguay and Brazil formally accused Coca-Cola, Cargill, and other corporations of biopiracy, using indigenous traditional knowledge for commercial gain without compensation. What needs to be understood is that we are talking about a small, obscure herb with a very limited natural range, explained Miguel Lovera of Paraguay's Agrarian Research Center. Western scientists did not discover the usefulness of this plant, they were introduced to it by the Guarani. Under the Nagoya Protocol, an international agreement on access and benefit sharing for genetic resources, the Guarani may have legal standing to claim compensation. Companies like Pure Circle hold over 400 stevia-related patents. The global stevia market is projected to reach billions of dollars. Yet the indigenous people who preserved this knowledge for millennia have received nothing. Meanwhile, wild stevia has become critically endangered in its native habitat. The same highlands that gave the world this remarkable plant are now threatened by agricultural expansion and land disputes that have displaced many Guarani communities. So why did Big Pharma, more accurately, Big Food and Big Agriculture, fail to fully patent stevia? The answer involves fundamental principles of patent law. You cannot patent nature. A plant that has existed for millions of years and been used by humans for thousands cannot become anyone's exclusive property. But the story doesn't end there. What corporations could patent and did were the industrial processes, extraction methods, and refined formulations that turn raw stevia leaves into commercial sweeteners. They couldn't own the plant, but they could own the most economical ways to use it. The regulatory timeline is also instructive. For 17 years, 1991 to 2008, stevia remained effectively banned in the United States, while it was freely sold in Japan, Brazil, and other countries. The ban lifted only after major corporations had developed patented processes and branded products ready for market. Coincidence or coordination? The evidence allows for both interpretations. Today, stevia-sweetened products are everywhere. By 2013, 47% of American households contained a stevia product. The market continues to grow as consumers seek alternatives to both sugar and artificial sweeteners. If you want to use stevia, you have several options. Products like Truvia and Purevia offer convenience and consistent taste, but contain mostly erythritol, with small amounts of refined stevia extracts. Pure stevia extract powders provide concentrated sweetness from stevia alone. A tiny amount goes a long way. Whole leaf stevia, sold as a dietary supplement, offers the least processed option, though with a more noticeable aftertaste. For those with adventurous gardening inclinations, stevia plants are now available at many nurseries. The plant grows as an annual in most climates, perennial only in tropical regions, and produces leaves you can dry and use, directly connecting you, in a small way, to the tradition the Guarani have maintained for over 1,000 years. The FDA currently recommends an acceptable daily intake of 4 milligrams of Steviol Glycosides per kilogram of body weight. For a 150-pound person, this translates to roughly 12 milligrams of high-purity stevia extract per kilogram daily, far more than most people would consume. Current research suggests stevia is safe at normal consumption levels. Though, as with any sweetener, moderation makes sense. The stevia story illuminates patterns that repeat across the modern food system. Indigenous knowledge, developed over centuries, becomes valuable to global corporations. Regulatory agencies make decisions that skeptics view as favoring industry interests. Natural products undergo extensive processing, then return to consumers as natural alternatives. The communities that originated the knowledge rarely share in the profits. Whether you view this as the inevitable march of progress or as a cautionary tale depends on your perspective. What remains undeniable is that a small plant from the Paraguayan highlands, Cahe, the sweet herb, has traveled an extraordinary journey from indigenous medicine to global commodity. The Guarani knew its sweetness for 1,000 years. Western science has known it for barely a century, and corporate America has been selling it for less than 2 decades. In that time, stevia has gone from banned substance to breakfast table staple, from folk remedy to multi-billion-dollar industry. Big Pharma, or more accurately, Big Food, didn't exactly fail to patent stevia. They simply couldn't patent what wasn't theirs to own. So they patented everything around it instead, and now dominate a market built on knowledge that was never theirs to begin with. The leaf itself remains unpatentable. The processes to refine it, very much patented. And the people who discovered its sweetness in the first place, still waiting for recognition. That, perhaps, is the real answer to why they failed.